Hi, welcome to my new series of videos called Copperplate Frequently Asked Questions. And today I'm going to be talking about ink. So the ink I'm using in all my videos is Walnut Ink. And this ink, I make it myself. So I buy crystals, which feels like instant coffee. And then I use a small jar like you see here. And I put as much crystals as I want to. So if you imagine you're making coffee for yourself. If you like a weak coffee, you will use less instant coffee. And if you like it darker and stronger, you will use more. In my case, I prefer my walnut ink quite dark, so I will use quite a lot of walnut crystals in here, okay? Now, I'm going to be touching upon other types of ink. So, for example, I'm going to be talking about the second option. So I'm going to show it to you now, which is called Sumi Ink. So Sumi Ink, I have this brand, but you have many other types of brands. It is much darker. Is used in this case, is very smooth flowing Sumi Ink for manga drawing. Okay, so it's a Japanese ink. It's beautiful, really opaque, slightly thicker. And there is a version of this ink also in red color, Vermillion, that is amazing, amazing. So that's a very beautiful option if you want to have a very opaque and a very opaque result. So in here, if I open the ink now and I dip, and I make sure I don't dip further than the reservoir. Otherwise, the ink is going to come up and then it's going to go into my fingers. The good thing about walnut ink is that if it comes up to your fingers or goes onto your clothing, just need to put your clothing in water for 24 hours and a bit of soap, and then it goes. But Sumi ink and other types of ink are not so forgiving. So I just dip in, and then we are just going to test it out. So it is much opaque. And it has a very beautiful effect as well. This type of ink is very beautiful. So if you're looking for something really black and opaque, this is your best friend. Also, the red color is very beautiful too, okay? So completely opaque ink, beautiful when it's dried. Okay, so that's gonna be option one. Now, let me close the ink and not going for any dramas on the table. Okay, option number two. Option number two is liquid watercolors. This is an option, Talens Ecoline. Any color will work fine. Or the other option will be the Spanish brand, Vallejo. Let me see that I might not have it right in front of me. Okay. So this brand is really, really common in Spain. And in both cases, you can have many colors. So you can choose between colors. You can also change between colors and create grading colors. So let's zoom out a little bit so that you can see my desk a little bit better. Okay, now let's move this. So what happens with this one? Okay, so Talens Ecoline. So in this case, you have this version, okay? It comes with an eyedropper, and then you have a space in here to dip in. Like, well, that's the thing. You don't have a space. So what happens is if you try, I'll grab another nib. If you try to use directly your nib and dip into the pot, it's not gonna work, okay? So what I normally do is I use any very, very, very cheap brush. Right now, I'm traveling, so I don't have all my brushes, but I would go and buy the cheapest of the brushes, something very, very affordable, and then I will dip into my liquid watercolor. And once I dip in, then I brush and fill my nib in this way, okay? So I put ink on both sides, front and back. This is also a beautiful way to clean the nib at the same time that you are loading the nib with ink. And then let's give it a try, okay? So let's see if there is enough ink. So I have to be careful so that I don't make a mess. And then what I'm using at the moment is an Eco G. The ink is semi-transparent, so it is beautiful if you want to use it to make gradients between colors, because it's going to give you a very nice transition. So I just loaded the nib a little bit more again. Okay, and from here up. So on my paper, which is a bleed-proof paper, all these inks work just nice. With regular copy paper, not all the inks will work, but in here, they are all giving me a nice result. So this is my blue Ecoline, and I'm just using now the ink, and I will close it, and that's how I will use it. Another way you can use it is if you have a small pot, for example, let's say something like that, or even smaller, you can use the eyedropper and then grab some ink, place it into this pot, and then use the brush and then load the nib in this way, okay? Okay, option number 2, okay. Option number 2, so the first option, which is Ecoline, is liquid watercolors, slightly transparent. This is also slightly transparent, so it's the same, just another brand. It's called Vallejo, and it's very, very common in Spain, and it's very affordable. So what happens with Vallejo? Well, same system. So it has like an eye drop in this way. So you have 2 options. Option number 1 is you are very adventurous and you don't care about making a mess, and just directly, you see, I just download ink directly onto my nib in this way. Of course, sometimes it's too much ink, and then it might be a problem in here, okay? So this is a bit tricky. I would recommend the best way is getting a small pot and then dipping the ink from there, and then now I'm gonna be soaking that because I feel like it's too much ink, and then loading the brush in this way, you know, back and front, the same as we have done before. I'm loading now the ink, and from here we start. Okay, so let's see if there is enough ink. No, so I need to load a little bit more. Okay, I just loaded directly onto the nib. Let's see. Up. Careful. And it's working just nice. I love this ink. I've used it many years. Okay, this ink, liquid watercolors, either the Vallejo brand or the Talens Ecoline, because are semi-transparent, means that these inks are gonna work really well on white or clear types of paper. But if you want to use darker papers, these inks are not gonna be your best friends because they are semi-transparent, so they are going to blend with the black background and they are not going to be visible, okay? So this one, and of course the black version of Sumi ink are only for white or clear papers. Okay, we move into the next one. So I recently purchased, let me grab it. I recently purchased Windsor Newton. It is very similar to liquid watercolors, is slightly translucid. I find Windsor and Newton doesn't work really well with regular copy paper, but Vallejo and Ecoline work well with bleed-proof paper as well as regular copy paper. So this ink is the same, slightly semi-transparent. You saw me using this ink on my former video called Paper. So you have in there an example of how this ink works and the same feeling, yeah? How do I use it? I cannot dip directly in, so I would need to just, I'm gonna reuse one of these brushes to make a mess, and the same way, you see, I'm just mixing now colors, so that my ink is pink, but because I'm mixing colors now, I'm getting like a purpley tone, like all together, okay? And it will work in the same way. So from here, if we tried it out, let's try. You see the difference, eh? It's amazing. It's like, oh, now it's bleeding. Interesting. Okay. For some reason, this ink is slightly more dense. So I feel like the tints are slightly thicker. You see more of these examples on the video where I talk about paper and how this ink reacts with different types of paper. Okay, let's finish the exercise. So I need an S. Okay. So it's much dense than the liquid watercolors. And for some reason, maybe I put my fingers in here before, but it started to bleed in the first part of that, okay? But still, this ink gives good results in many other types of paper. So maybe this one is not liking it right now, but it has given me good results as well. Excellent. So now, next one. Okay, what happens if we want to work with darker papers? So if we want to go work with black or darker, I would recommend for white color, I recommend Dr. Marf Martin's Bulletproof White. It's a very good ink. It's slightly thicker. So what I say slightly thicker is think of toothpaste. Okay. So in this one is also dried up. So I have to now soften it up. Okay, what do I do with this? Because this is not flowy at the moment, it's very thick. So what I do is I just grab a small jar and another affordable brush that is nothing expensive, it's just a brush to be mixing ink and water. And now what do I do? So I have two versions to do that. Version one is you use an eyedropper. So I have an eyedropper that comes from flour mix that I bought a couple of years ago, and I recycled that. So the eyedropper, basically, as you can imagine, I go in and just add a couple of drops and then add the ink and start moving it around like I'm cooking a recipe. Okay, option number one. Option number two, which is not glass and it might be easier to carry around, is a syringe. Super affordable. You can buy this anywhere, fill it with water, put a few drops of water, put a little bit of ink, and then start. Now, when is it ready? Well, is it ready when the consistency is just right? And what is right? Well, right means it's not too liquefied, it's not too thick. If it's too thick, it's not going to run through your nib. If it's too liquefied, it's not going to come down, or it's just not going to be opaque enough. Okay, so I have this made a few minutes ago. Okay, and I don't know if the consistency is good or not yet, so I need to test it now. Okay, we can grab a piece of black paper so for you to see. Okay, and now we have the black piece of paper in here and see what happens. Okay, we are going to test it out. Regardless what type of nib you use, it should work. Of course, some nibs are more flexible than others, so you will need to give it a try. In here, I have another nib that I have for the white. So I'm just going to load it back in front and see. I don't know if it's too thick or too liquefied, so we need to test it. Okay, so I'm brushing, cleaning the nib at the same time as I'm loading it. Then we are going to try. Okay, so this nib is called Bulletproof White. So let's try. Going up. Going up. Oh, it works well so far. Yeah, it's good. It's a good consistency. If I need more ink, of course, I need to go to the ink with the brush and come here and load it again back in front and keep going in this way. Okay, so let's try Bulletproof. It's very opaque, so it will work really nicely. I'm going very slow always. And then let's go up. Okay, so it works really well and it's very, very opaque. So I'm gonna say yes. Next one. Okay, the next group of the next ink I want to show you is this one. So this ink is very popular as well. It's very beautiful. You have different types of metallic colors, golden, silver, copper. This brand, you can find it under two names. So it can be either Coliro, I don't know how you pronounce this, but it's made in Germany, as you can see. You can find it under the name of Coliro, or you can find it under the name of Finetec. I will add the details on the description of this video. So in here you have what you probably used when you were a little kid and you went to school and you did some arts and craft. So literally, if you're gonna need to add some water, so you can either use a syringe or an eyedropper and drop a few drops in the color that you want to use. And I will use another brush. And you can either load the ink from here, or if you want to prepare more ink, because you know that you are going to be writing more and you need to make sure that the recipe is ready for you, so you can use another small bowl and keep mixing the ink on the side and have the ink in here ready, so you don't have to be testing all the time the consistency. Okay, so I haven't tested this yet, so the same, it can be too liquefied or too dense. We will need to give it a try. Okay, so a little bit. And then from here, I will prepare enough ink so that I don't need to be mixing and cooking the density of the ink in every second word. Okay. These inks are very opaque and beautiful, so these inks will work nicely on white as well as on black. Obviously not the silver, but the other colors. And I will show you now a few examples. Okay. All right. So I grab another nib and I load the nib from the front and to the back like that, and then it will be ready. Excellent. Okay, let's try. Cool. Here. So we go back here. What happens when you work with a black paper and you cannot see it through the lines? Well, I talk about this on my other video about papers. Obviously, you have a few options. You can rule the lines, you can freestyle the sketch with pencil, or you can use a lighting, like there is some calligraphers using like a laser light. This is another option. Okay, let's try. So we'll see if it's thick enough. The name, no, we need more ink. So there is too much water, so I need more ink. Let's try again. Okay. I load it with more ink and see if it works. That's better. Okay. You will see that sometimes you lose the thins. So I need to cheat and go back. And this might be because the ink is slightly too thick now. Okay. It works very nice. If I move the paper now, you will see, because depending on the lighting, you can see it better or worse. Okay, so it works really nice. It's very opaque. Okay, so we have all these different brands that we can use. Thicker and completely opaque. These three brands are semi-transparent, so it's gonna work nice on whiter papers, but not on darker papers. And for black and darker papers, I very much recommend Dr. Martin's Bulletproof White or Coliro or Finetec, depending how you find it online, for darker papers. And these are very beautiful metallic versions of all these colors as well. Excellent. Now I'm going to show you a couple of versions of my own work. Just a sec. Let's move the desk because I'm going to make a mess. If you want to do things on darker papers, you can also use golden and metallic ballpoint pens, because it's going to give you a very nice result. For example, this is handwriting very carefully done with a silver ballpoint pen. So it is not a fancy calligraphy tool, but it still works really nice. Same as this one is is white ballpoint pen. So it works really well in both cases. And then I'll show you what copperplate looks like sometimes when it's very traditional effect. So option one, an envelope. And of course, I'm combining different styles of writing, but I'm using Dr. Martin's Bulletproof White. It is very opaque and it's very beautiful. It's thin and thick. You get very, very good definition of the letter forms. This is what happens when you use golden ink on white paper. Okay, depending on the lighting, it might give you a reflection, but this actually was not using Coliro. I used gouache. What is gouache? Gouache is a French ink that is, again, same as the Bulletproof, same as this pot, very similar. It feels like toothpaste and is quite thick. So you will need to grab an eyedropper and a small pot and mix it with water till you find the right consistency. I feel this is also Talens, the brand Talens. I will add it into the description of this video. I love this golden ink, and in Spain you can find it anywhere. So you have two options, Coliro or Talens gouache, gold and other colors. Gold and every other color, okay, is completely opaque, same as Sumi ink, but you will need to make the mix manually. What else we have? Okay, golden on black. Same address, but the difference is beautiful as well. It reacts with the light, so sometimes more opaque, sometimes more shiny, but the definition of these Talens gouache ink is fantastic as well. Okay, and this is regular walnut ink. So it still is very dark. I put a lot of crystals, so it feels almost like black, but it is walnut ink. So I feel very confident because I know walnut ink is gonna work in every type of surface. And I think with this, we have all the versions. So if you want to use a bigger envelope like this, of course, different layouts for different things, but this is again Walnut Ink. So you have all these different versions and how these look, okay? Or on my website, you will find different examples of how I use liquid watercolors and how I created gradients as well with the inks. So that's it. We are done. This is the video about inks, and hopefully this was very helpful. Let me know. Thank you.